Welcome to the full experience, where we get the essence of an entire run of a television show by watching 4 episodes. The first, the ultimate, the highest rated, the lowest rated, and the last episode. And we are finishing up Moonlighting. This is the discussion of Season 5, Episode 13, Lunar Eclipse, which first aired May 14th, 1989. I'm Tom Merritt. He's Brian Brushwood.
Holy moly, Tom. I'm going to make a bold proclamation. I'm going to make a bold move. Ladies and gentlemen of the full experience, I hereby nominate Moonlighting as the most successful functioning of the full experience as an experiment ever, because we watched exactly 4 episodes. We watched the first episode that set the tone with the pilot. Yep. We watched the ultimate episode that did something very different. Then we watched a clip show in which they highlighted those first 2. And then we watched the last episode, which, guess what, guys? Filled in the rest of the gaps. I don't believe I ever need to see another episode of Moonlighting. I may have actually watched the entire series of Moonlighting.
It kind of feels that way. Like, the one guy from the clip show that I didn't know was Herbert. And man, we got a lot of Herbert in this episode.
Right? Oh, I saw him briefly in the clip show and meant to bring up Curtis Armstrong, who had a legendary run on the podcast Harmontown. He was a real treat to watch, but he is a very thoughtful, very deliberate actor who plays, curiosities like, Booger and Herbert, you said was the character name on this?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
but anyway, it was a treat to see him. It was, it got a little bit meta, a little bit too meta at one point, but
really,
so
as we've discussed, the shtick around Moonlighting was like, ooh, they're a TV show that looks at the camera. And now that happens a lot, right? That's not a shtick that every TV show does, but more of them do it. It was new when Moonlighting did it. I loved that the last 8 minutes and 32 seconds just leaned all the way in and did the Rona Barrett thing again, where they're like, you two are characters in a television show, but also we all know you're in a television show, and they know they're in a television show, and they try to figure out how to save the television show. I was bored through most of this episode, mostly because I wasn't invested in Herbert's wedding, and this was all about that. Apparently, those 2 characters became much more important in later seasons. And then the last 8 minutes, I got Moonlighting. I got them like saying, oh, you like it when we break the 4th wall? Let's smash it. Let's bring Timothy Leary in. Let's have stunt casting and everything you love.
There was a threshold that I had to get over. Once I got over it, I did have a good time. But there was a brief moment that I thought, oh, this is great. They're doing dual layered talking about fan of your work or whatever. And too bad it's, and they give a time left or whatever. But then it became clear that it's like, nope, they're literally just setting fire to all of the narrative stakes that have been established up until this point. And now they're just talking about how the show's ending. And I lost interest because we've talked before how I like a little bit of a concrete ground so that there are stakes and things. It felt like there were no stakes. But then the wild ride went far enough that it's like, okay, this is the writer's room talking directly to the viewer at home saying, oh, what would you like? You want them to get together? We want us to force it? Because this is what it'd look like if we forced it just to keep the show going. Oh, that's not very satisfying, is it? So in that regard, so it did get me all the way in on it at that point.
Well, one of the things I loved about it is that they said, the problem with the show is once you 2 got together, nobody cared anymore. And that's what happened. That is one thing we didn't see in the full experience is 2 seasons before they got David and Maddie together. And after that is when they started to make Herbert's story more prominent, because they're like, well, what do we do now? And this is, like you said, the writer's room talking to the audience going like, yeah, the problem was everybody wanted them to get together. But then once we got them together, we didn't have any story to tell anymore. Sorry. That's why we're getting canceled. I loved that honesty in the show itself.
Yeah, and again, we kind of get to grade on a curve because it was difficult to strike a tone of nuance in 1980s monoculture broadcast television. And so that level of coded table talk, there was no podcast where somebody could speak plainly about these things back in the day.
Also, you didn't have as much of I guess that's why NBC's number one, like in an ABC show like that. The fact that they were able to get that to air was kind of interesting in 1989.
Yeah, I had a good issue. This one felt a little bit like work for the first 2/3.
Yeah, I wrote, sorry, I'm bored at one point. I also wrote Disney hats. Wow, they went far. When Herbert took Annie Charnock around, that whole plot was on rails. It was clearly not their best plot. Amos, I wonder if you made it through this episode. Were you able to watch it?
I did. Well, mostly listened to it in the car on the way home from Anchorage today. I don't know. I don't.
You know what? Can I confess something? I do feel like I've got to. I also listened to it in the car for the first half, or for kind of in the middle of it, and then I went back and even then,
you probably enjoyed it more than if you'd had to watch it like I did.
Well, although I did watch all of the beginning and all of the end, and by the end, when it was so clearly like they're dismantling everything, I went back and I watched the beginning again, and they have that construction scene at Maddie's house, and very clearly they're just dismantling her set. And I don't know. I think that kind of worked on multiple.
That's cool. Yeah,
levels.
I didn't put that together. That's clever. Yeah. So how was it listening to it in the car like a podcast?
Well, to be honest, it probably got an upgrade. Did you guys notice that was the Perry Mason theme? Actually, did any of you recognize the Perry Mason theme?
I looked at my wife and I was like, I was driving. I was like, wait, did Perry Mason just come on the show or something? And she's like, no, I don't.
Who
I don't
is
think
Perry
so.
Mason?
Yeah, and I was like, but that's the Perry Mason theme song. Why isn't there? Because again, I wasn't watching it, so I didn't know if like the Private Eye was actually Perry Mason, like doing
the Private Eye is one of those Hollywood that guys, right? Like he's played a detective in other things as well.
And they wrote him that way too.
Because I wasn't watching it, it could have been the Perry Mason on there for all I knew.
Nice Ray Charles music at the end. I actually felt like I had watched the entire thing because I did watch a lot more of it anyway, back when I was a kid. And so seeing the scenes again, most of which we had seen either in the clip show or the two other episodes we watched.
We've seen that bucket gag
so many times.
3 out of 4 episodes of Moonlighting agree. That was a fine intro.
That bucket gag is the one.
I don't really have anything to add that you guys didn't already say. It was kind of boring for the first part of it. The B plot or A plot, I guess. I don't.
Yeah, the A plot felt like a B plot.
There were two A plots. There was the wedding A plot and the detective B plot. Then there was the end of the show A plot. I almost felt like this had been an episode not meant to be the finale, and they're like, "Oh, let's tack on these 8 minutes at the end and call it the finale."
Yep, that 100% tracks, in my opinion. In fact, we should see kind of how it was rated on IMDb. I bet that's an interesting vector that we haven't considered with the full experience. Is how often is the last episode very low rated? Like, for example, Sliders,
we often find that it's the highest rated and we have to watch something else, but then there's
7.3. The average for the season was right around a 6.9, I'd say.
Wow,
it is higher rated in its last season than other episodes, but not the highest rated of the run. The high ratings come in seasons 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Interesting. So. Well, I also liked. I mean, they full on gave the writers' room a voice in the form of the director producer, who's like, the thing is falling in love. If you're falling forever, then you're adrift, or I forget whatever clever turn of phrase that he did.
I got to give it to him though. Like, they left no ambiguity on the floor. You knew this was the last episode. Like there wasn't a
Oh, yeah.
last little
Actually,
last
no.
little
There
twist,
was
you know?
ambiguity because of the selection of the song, which number one, shouts out for not going with the cliche. This is before you had moneyed interest that guaranteed that you would always do some of the canonical 100 songs from a wedding / funeral. This was a Ray Charles song that I was not terribly familiar with, but it also was a song about seeing you again. So it sort of teed up the outside possibility in my mind as a viewer for what if there was a Moonlighting movie someday.
Yeah.
That kind
I'm
of
sure that was like, let's leave that door open. You never know.
Yeah.
So yeah. And I know there was talk of a Moonlighting movie for a while after this until Die Hard happened.
I did like the the casual one-liner of like pray to God that there's a spin-off for me.
For her-
Oh, yes. Her getting all upset about, oh, this is great for you. What about me? Pray to God there's a spin-off for me. That was a good line. Yeah, so there you go. That is Moonlighting. Any other last thoughts before we announce our next full experience?
Yeah, I'd love to know kind of general opinion. Like I'm glad we picked this one. I'm glad we did it. It was certainly since Amos joined us, this has been, it's good to get back to those Miami Vice production vibes.
Yeah.
Of like high detail reflections in sunglasses for Brian to study the set design
Sure.
of.
Yeah. It's a same era. So yeah, it's perfect for that.
Yeah, I'm glad it's over.
It was a fun look back. I'll put it that way.
I'm glad I had a good time watching it too.
Yeah. Likewise. I didn't enjoy the episodes per se, but I enjoyed the look back and being like, oh, look, David and Maddie, I remember them. I thought of Bruce Willis as the guy from Moonlighting for many years after this. Like, I don't think of him that way anymore, of course, because he's had such a storied career. But, when he first started doing movies, I'm like, oh, the guy from Moonlighting. Oh, cool. I like him. So it was really interesting to see that again.
I kept waiting for him to say yippee-ki-yay. And it never happened. So
happened.
That tells you where my balance of Bruce Willis is.
Oh,
Gotcha.
One last note. What a hard left turn after the first Ultimate Lowest, and all of a sudden we just see him sleeping with somebody else's wife. And it's
Right?
Wow. Okay.
Like, oh, we never see them get together. I guess that is the one thing that fell out of this.
My
in the
wife
full
actually
experience.
asked me, she was like, is that her cousin? And I said, I have no idea, babe.
Yep, it was.
I don't know who that lady is.
It was her cousin. We find out later it's her cousin, but we
Yeah.
don't know that immediately.
Yeah,
Well, that is Moonlighting. Our full experience of Moonlighting has come to a conclusion. Thank you for joining us on this experience. Our next full experience is our most experimental yet. Starting next week, we will do the full experience of Star Wars Andor. Now, technically, we're starting it before Star Wars Andor is done, but by the time the full experience is done, Star Wars Andor will be over. So
and we'll never see one episode ahead of its sanctioned full experience.
Exactly.
window.
So next week, we will discuss the first episode of Star Wars Andor, Season 1, Episode 1, Kassa. By the week after that, we'll know the highest rated because they'll all have come out, and we'll watch the ultimate, then we'll watch the lowest, and of course, the last will be out just before we watch the first. So we will be watching the last episode of Star Wars Andor 4 weeks from now. So Star Wars Andor, we don't know what the ultimate and lowest are yet, but by next week we will. All you need to know for the first episode of the full experience Star Wars Andor is to watch the first episode, Season 1, Episode 1, called Kassa.
Yeah, doggone it. Yep. Sorry. I thought I had something, but I didn't.
Yeah. All right. That is it
now,
for the. Oh,
as
sorry.
it stands
Yes.
right now, the lowest rated is Season 1, Episode 2, and the highest rated is Season.
This
season
may
1,
may
Episode
still be
10.
the case next week. May not.
It'll
So
be interesting.
this is perishable information.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. Let's keep the mystery until next week. That is it for the full experience. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. You get these episodes early, and you get to weigh in on our discussions by getting the after talk if you're a patron at patreon.com/Cordkillers. Talk to you next time.